The Ocoee Massacre, the day democracy died in Florida. A dark Florida night. Fire flickers across the screen. November 2nd, 1920, America was voting for its next president. In Florida, a small town called Ocoee stood still under the humid night air. While the rest of the nation celebrated democracy, Ocoee would witness one of the bloodiest political massacres in U.S. history. By sunrise, every black resident was dead, injured, or forced to flee. Their homes burned, their lands stolen, their voices silenced. And it all began because one man dared to vote. The promise of freedom. Ocoee, Florida. A town of orange groves, sunshine, and hard work. In the early 1900s, it was home to a small but thriving black community. Most of them were farmers, men and women who had bought land after emancipation. They raised crops, built churches, ran schools, and owned their homes, something rare in the Jim Crow South. And among them was July Perry, a respected landowner, husband, father, and community leader. Perry was known as a fair man, someone who helped settle disputes and encouraged education among the black youth. He was also a close friend of Mose Norman, another successful farmer. Together, they worked to register black citizens to vote. For them, this wasn't just about politics. It was about dignity, about proving they were full citizens in a land that had enslaved their ancestors. A nation on edge. But 1920 America was a nation divided. After World War I, racial tensions were at a boiling point. Across the South, black veterans returning from war were beaten, lynched, or killed for demanding respect. The Ku Klux Klan was growing again, parading openly, promising to keep America white. That year's election was also historic. It was the first election after women won the right to vote. So, more people than ever were headed to the polls. In Ocoee, that meant hundreds of newly registered black voters. White politicians and Klan members saw this as a direct threat. They warned that any black person who tried to vote would face consequences. Flyers were distributed, crosses were burned. But still, July Perry and Mose Norman told their people, open quote, "This time, we will not be silent. We have a right to vote, and we will use it." Close quote. Scene 3. The Man Who Dared to Vote. On the morning of November 2nd, 1920, Election Day, Mose Norman put on his best clothes, held his voter card, and walked to the polling station. He had worked for months helping others register. Now it was his turn. But when he arrived, the white election officials told him, open quote, "You can't vote here, boy." Close quote. They claimed he wasn't on the list, a lie used countless times to suppress black voters. Norman left, but he didn't give up. He returned hours later, determined. This time, he came with his registration papers in hand, demanding his right. But instead of fairness, he was met with violence and humiliation. The poll workers and white mobs outside shouted insults, and one man reportedly struck him. Norman was forced away a second time, and that's when the rumors began to spread, open quote, "That Negro's going to cause trouble," close quote. By sundown, a white mob of over 100 men was forming, armed, drunk, and ready for blood. 4. The attack on July Perry's home. The mob marching through dark roads with torches, shouting. The mob believed Mose Norman had taken refuge at July Perry's home, and they wanted him. Inside, Perry knew what was coming. He told his wife Estelle and their daughter to stay low and keep quiet. When the mob surrounded his home, the night filled with shouts, open quote, "Send them out, we know he's in there," close quote. Perry refused. He was defending not just his home, but his manhood, his right to exist freely. Gunfire erupted. The mob tried to storm the back door. Perry fought back, shooting 2 white men, Elmer McDaniels and Leo Borgard, who fell dead on the porch. The enraged mob called for reinforcements from Orlando and nearby towns. Hundreds joined, turning Ocoee into a war zone. By midnight, they overpowered Perry's defenses. He was shot, captured, and dragged through the streets. They tied a rope around his neck and hung him from a telephone pole, his body riddled with bullets. It was a message, a warning to every black voter in Florida, open quote, "This is what happens when you stand up." But the mob wasn't done. After killing Perry, they turned their fury on every black home in Ocoee. Dozens of houses were set ablaze. Flames lit up the night sky. The crackle of fire mixed with screams and gunshots. Families ran into the orange groves, hiding under the trees as bullets whizzed past. Some were captured and beaten. Others were shot where they stood. By morning, the entire black district of Ocoee was gone, burned to the ground. Churches, schools, businesses, everything destroyed. At least 4 black people were confirmed dead, but survivors later said the true number could be in the hundreds. And then came the final blow. The surviving black families were told, open quote, "Leave and never come back," close quote. Those who stayed risked death. By the end of that week, Ocoee had become a sundown town. No black person was allowed to live there. Land stolen, history erased. When the smoke cleared, white residents quickly moved in. The land once owned by black families, fertile, valuable farmland, was seized and sold for pennies. In one night, an entire community was erased, not only by fire, but by paperwork. For generations, the descendants of Ocoee's black residents never saw justice, compensation, or acknowledgement. And the tragedy was hidden from history books for nearly a century. For decades, the people of Ocoee refused to talk about it. Teachers skipped over it. Newspapers ignored it. But silence can't bury truth forever. In the 2000s, researchers and descendants began to uncover the forgotten massacre. Stories passed down through whispers became public testimony. Finally, on June 21, 2019, nearly a century later, a historical marker was unveiled in Heritage Square, Orlando, to honor July Perry, Mose Norman, and the countless others who lost their lives in the fight for democracy. The Ocoee Massacre wasn't just a story about hate. It was a story about courage. About men like Mose Norman, who stood at the ballot box knowing what it could cost him. And about July Perry, who died defending his home, his family, and his right to be treated as a man. Their blood wrote a warning that freedom isn't free, and democracy means nothing if it excludes the brave. Today, when you stand in line to vote, remember Ocoee, remember Perry, remember Norman, because every ballot cast without fear is a victory they never got to see. And this is Afri Facts, where we tell the stories they tried to erase. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so history will never be buried again.